Good morning, everybody. It's Marty the JavaScript Party. I'm a buddy Rhett, and it's a Saturday, beautiful Saturday morning here in Marietta, Georgia. I gave her I think it's called a Brazil nut. It's like a long, very dark brown one. I guess she didn't like it. Let's see, where'd that go? She didn't like it. I actually didn't crush it too much. Let me check my microphone. It seems to be in the right spot. We're building. We're trying to run the unit tests. I guess we've been working on this project for almost 11 months. Or is it 11 months? We started at month one and it's month 11. So I believe it's 10 and a half months we've been working on this project. We haven't gotten hardly anything done. Um, the reality is just like, so back in the old days, my understanding is that people would like make maps. And when they made maps, what would happen is there were certain areas that people would always go and they would always come back dead, or they wouldn't come back. Yeah, they wouldn't come back. They would go there and wouldn't come back. So they sort of had like a shorthand way of saying that, and it says "There be dragons," and I think that was the way of saying, "Hey, we got it's uh it's bad. It's real bad, and you don't want to go there." Um, but of course, people go there. I don't know of a good ThreeJS application that you can do editing and manipulating in and stuff like that. And the reason is because it's hard. I mean, there's just no question about it. It's just very, very difficult to do. Um, and why? We're starting to figure out why. We're starting to figure out that it's tough to not create like a memory leaks. It's really hard not to. It's really hard to keep everything organized, and then 3JS has a very specific and pretty inconsistent way of sort of describing the world. Sometimes you lock something into something. Sometimes you tell it to point at something at an area, and then you have to keep retelling it. And there's just a lot of things like that, and those things sort of accumulate into a way as you build out the application where it's just not feasible, or where you get so many little edge cases that you're coding around that you end up with uh, spaghetti code that's just unmaintainable and all that. And even if you do manage to get it all right, so that you can do everything, you end up with like massive memory leaks that end up causing the whole thing to crash. So, but there's so much potential. Like it's just one of those things where like if we can get this working, there's so many cool things that we can build, but we've got to get it working. Now we could build a cool thing. Like we could say, "Oh, I want to build a cool thing," and we could figure that out and build that cool thing. But then that's a one and done kind of thing. Um, so I have working on this. So in the 11 months, a big reason why we don't have anything done is we probably spent at least 3 months, so more than 25, probably 30, maybe 35% of the time on unit tests. I really didn't know, I didn't think much of unit tests before all of this, and I'm starting to warm up to unit tests. I definitely like them more now than when I started. I still don't know if it's worth it because it has, in fact, just completely just bogged down this project. But it wouldn't have taken nearly as long. Like I bet you, instead of 35%, if I had known what I know now, it probably would have only taken like 10 or 12%. Um, and then we spent at least 15% on end-to-end testing. So, and then that I don't regret at all. And to be honest with you, the only reason we haven't moved this project forward is because the end-to-end testing found breakages. And then in the process of fixing those breakages, we ended up finding other things that I wanted to address and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about all that, but it looks like our most least covered thing is this app update layout. And I think we kind of started on this other day. So you see that this gets called 8 times during our unit test, but it can never, this editor view native element never exists and all that. So I had decided I wanted yeah, so we're here. I wanted to create like um, a function that we can call directly, and that works. And now the next, but that does, so now we can call that directly, but we still have problems in here. So I want to deal with this. Um, so basically, what I would like to do, like, so we ran into these problems before, and one of the things we found was that if we can break these branches into functions, that it's a lot easier to unit test. So one of the things we can do is, so basically what we're looking for, it looks like here, and this is like another thing, is like when you're writing code, I kind of thought of this morning. When you're writing code, there's sort of like different modes. Like it's more on it's more not digital, but more analog in that uh, you sometimes you really understand what exactly what you're doing step by step, and sometimes you don't understand it at all. Like everything's just fully abstract, and you're between one edge and the other, and you kind of have to be able to function in both scenarios really well. But when you're doing different things, you want to be at different levels of like fully understanding what's going on and not understanding. And I think that when you're doing unit tests is a good time to fully understand what's going on. Like that's the time it's a good idea if you're going to do unit tests. And then like I think when you're anytime you're writing code, you want to be in the mode of fully understanding everything that's going on and understand what's going on. And if you do unit tests, that's a great time to kind of set aside for that process. So this is process visualization. So process visualization is pretty generic, right? There's no way for me to understand what this thing is doing. Now, it only wants to do things if the render ID is greater than 0. So, and then we only want to do it if there's a native element. So basically, why would the render ID not equal 0? It wouldn't equal 0 because um, it would be greater. It wouldn't be greater than 0 yet because the ST hadn't been created yet, right? So the app layout component for some reason was generated, but the ST renderer ID didn't exist yet. And I don't really know exactly when that would happen. And the best time to have understood that was when that would happen. But um, what we could do is we could create a little function, right? That so that we can understand what's going on. And maybe in the future we'll have a better understanding. I would say I have like a 95% understanding, but I would love to have 100% understanding. But this is ST created. And it's going to take my app layout component and that is of type app layout component. And this is the first time I've ever like actually passed, well, in a way that I understood, because I have actually had to pass the whole layout component for things like dialogues and stuff like that, but I didn't really understand it. Boolean. And then basically let created equals false. So by default, it's not created. And then we're going to say if app layout component. Now this may not even be right. I think this is right, but it may not. This may not actually mean this, but I think this is what it means. And if it doesn't mean this, at least in some point in the future when I'm kind of debugging like a bug or something, I'll be able to be like, oh, doesn't mean that at all. And then I can fix it then. But at this point, trying to figure out what that means, I don't think it's a good use of time created. And then basically I'm going to create a function. This is created. Const is created, Is ST created? Yeah, I like how I did that. App layout component. It's not completely um, um, precise. Like, is ST created? Like ST what? I'm assuming. Oh, is ST renderer created? Let's add that. And I don't know when else I would do this, right? Like, I don't know when else I would sit down and just like make this thing crystal clear, understandable, understander, understandable app. Talk about it. So India is back into the #1 spot for me of people who visited my site. Bangladesh did fall down to 2. Brazil fell to is rose to 3, and then United States is less than 1% of all people who view my videos are United States. A really dear friend of mine, like I guess someone that I would kind of consider. I don't really make friendships, but probably someone I would consider maybe one of my very best friends in the world. Um, he is I don't know. I think he's a VP or something of a corporation, and they just of a company that is AI is around AI and stuff like that, and they just put out like a help wanted, which I am definitely not looking for a job, right? Like my goal is to stay in my position for at least 10 years. Um, but they put out like a help wanted for React, a React developer, and it's just like, I don't know, dude. I don't know if you understand the web, but anyways, not that I'm not criticizing React, but you know, so I'm gonna make this is renderer created, is st renderer created. So if that is true, then we're gonna do this, and then this one. Now this is basically we're saying that is the editor view. Does the editor view's DOM element exist? Let's see. Hmm, is see, it's like does. I've never seen a function named does to start. So let's go where the dragons are. I've never seen this before. I have no idea why, but we'll see. No. Oh, does exist. Yeah, it does. Editor view DOM element exists. Now, I would never have wanted to do this in the 2000s, right? From between 2000 and 2010, um, I would, this would make your application so slow. But now, all this crazy stuff that we're doing just so that is more readable, all of that is all of that is transpiled away. And that's like one of those things where like you learn things at certain points in your career, and then in future points of your career, those things actually become a disadvantage. Um, like this guy was just talking about. Um, he always used to always say, I don't think he made it up, but he may have. Um, he would always say like today's pattern is tomorrow's anti-pattern. Um, false. If and basically we want this, right? I feel like it took like weeks before for me to get to this point of being able to just um, rewrite code in a way that makes it so much easier to unit test. So return exists. right? So I feel like this code is a lot easier to read. Const does. So I'm going to say DOM element. And I guess I should say editor. I thought that like that those sorts of things wouldn't be necessary since I'm in the update layout committee, but when I'm narrowed down, focused in on code like this, I'm not super aware of the name of the file that I'm in. So, okay, why doesn't this just pop up over here? And again, I've never seen a function that started with the word does, and then we change this to does editor DOM element exists. Let's name this to exists. Okay, now what the heck? So we just checked that, but the transpiler does not seem to be able to figure this out. So I'm going to say, it's saying the editor view might not exist. And I don't know what else to do about this. I don't think we can put a question mark. I want to basically force it. I think I could just say as, see, since this is checking it, it doesn't see, it was able to, the transpiler was able to sort of do a static analysis of the line of code when this was in here, but it can't quite do it in here. And that may be of what drove me to add that. Actually, it wouldn't surprise me if that is, the only reason I did that is for the transpiler. As undefined, as unknown, then as HTML. Yep. So it's saying that app, okay, what is that? Const editor view is equal to, looks like that's the piece I'm gonna have to like force. And we're gonna say that this is a string because I don't know what it is. But this is one of my tricks, the tricks of the trade. It's saying it's an element ref any. And we're going to say that that's what this is. It's an element ref. And then I think with the any, we can, I think that goes, well, let's do this. As unknown as we'll put that in there. So we're basically saying, don't worry about it. This is what it is. Now, we can get rid of this. And it compiles again. So I think that that was the only reason that code exists. I feel like that code is easier to read. Sometimes it's easier to read while you're doing it, and then when you come back later, it isn't. But let's go over here, reload this. Wait for this thing to finish and refresh. All right. So basically now we just want to pass, we want to create a new function that passes these two things into it and then calls this if that is the case. So basically it's going to be, basically what does this thing do? Is it resizes the visualization. And I think that um, it's, oh, it's doing that to be responsive. Okay, so resize. What is it resize to? Oh, update visualization size. I'm going to call it that. Update ST visualization size. ST visualization size. And it's going to accept three things. It's going to accept this app layout component. And it's going to accept the is renderer created, Boolean, and editor DOM exists. Which is a Boolean. And then we're going to move that logic into this function because I don't think writing a unit test that could, where we just hard code is render created in editor exists. I don't think it's going to be hard to write a unit test for that. And basically we can just copy this whole thing. And we can just say this dot update visualization size. And we are going to pass in the app layout component that is render created and the editor DOM exists. So that will get covered. That line of code will absolutely get covered. This one we can just put together in our unit test. We can put together an app, a column layout, and it'll be very simple to write a unit test for this. I think this thing should return a Boolean. And basically updated, let updated equals false. If we get in here, then updated becomes true. And then we return updated. And I'm guessing whatever called this guy would probably like to know if it got updated or not. Hit save, come over to our unit test. I guess we should have the unit test. And really, we should actually test to make sure this stuff still works. I think it would be pretty obvious if it didn't work if we come in here and does it? Oh, I think it's not calling F12. I can't even remember if it was like resizing. I think it was. I think this aspect ratio would change and everything. So, but it doesn't look like anything we did just now broke that. But yeah, I think once we hit, it wouldn't surprise me if that presents when we write I hope it presents when we write our end-to-end tests. Yeah, because reflow is on, so I think it should be resizing um, at that point. And I hope I got that in the test coverage. All right, so reload. And so now this guy is now covered. This guy is not covered, but the thing, we can write a test that actually passes in a that set to true. And then we have this guy here and that. So let's go ahead and, I don't know, let's do an easy one. Is render created? So basically, I just want a unit test for this one that just checks to see if the render was created, if the ST renderer is created. So let's go ahead and do that one. Now, do we have anything for it? Should process visualization. See, I didn't know what the hell it was doing. I mean, I'm definitely growing. And I have actually two functions with the exact same name. Should determine the current ID. All right. So I don't know if we broke that other thing or not. I don't think so, because I feel like if we did, it would have choked on something, but maybe. Um, it it's it's a bit annoying because, like I think that represents probably at least like another week of just coding trying to get shit just basically working. Um, should check if the ST renderer was created. Right, so this is just what the only thing this um, test does. It just makes sure that it knows how to check to see if the renderer ID is created. And so basically, we want to create a mock component. So we've already created a mock component. Is this our? I guess it is still a fake component. So let's just grab that. Okay, so we're creating a fake component. I don't think we need any of this. All we're looking for. Okay, I don't know what that was for. That I'm sure that was important, but it's not important. So this thing needs to have an ST renderer ID. I believe that's what we need to do is just make it ST render. And then we just want to call that function. So, and I believe it's called components. So, okay, so const is rendered is equal to component dot, and that's just what they name it. So there's nothing special about the name component. It just got named that way. And we're going to set it our mock component. And then we're going to expect is rendered to be, and I think we can just say true, right? True. And what we're hoping is that when this is done, Looks like one failed. We have a failed unit test now, which I was not expecting. Oh, is it this one? Should process the visualization. Okay, so we actually had one. We have two that are named the same, and unfortunately, oh, spec line 66 failed. Okay, so first things first, let's check to see if we got our 100% since we're working on that. I don't think it reran it. 100%. Yep. Okay, so we have that. That's covered. Now let's figure out why line 66 of this spec is failing. To equal true. Okay, so we would not expect this to equal true now. So I pass it a component. Oh, this is for the component, so I wonder. Yeah, I'm a bit confused on this. But I don't think we would expect this to be true. We would expect this to be false. Let's see. See if we can make it true, though. See, I don't think so because that is following process visualization. That's calling this thing, and basically is render created is definitely going to, I think this one's definitely going to create a false. So I would expect should process visualization. We'll expect this to be a false. Should return a false because the st render ID is, I think it's -1, right? Let's see. Expect component dot st render ID. I think it's 2 equal -1, right? I believe that's what it defaults to. I can't remember for sure. Expected 0. Oh, so it's 0, not, it defaults to 0, not -1. So that will definitely cause this thing to return a. And I will say that, like checking in with myself, like this makes so much more sense, right? Like that information, I guess, who was it? There's a great philosopher. They call it his way of like the information, the knowledge was already inside of me, but I just didn't have it set up in a way that I could access it. Now it's very clear. It's very like I was able to go, oh, okay, yeah, this thing is definitely going to return a render a false because the render ID is equal to 0. Now I'm curious. I'm curious if I set it to 1, and then you probably wouldn't want to do this, right? And the reason you wouldn't want to do this is because I don't think this. I think this component. Yeah, this component just gets created. Oh no, it's before each. Okay, I was gonna say you don't want to. Like I was thinking, I didn't realize it was before each, so I was thinking that what we're seeing is actually okay. So so it did pass. Oh no, so it's still false, and that's probably because the DOM element doesn't exist. See, this all makes so much more sense to me now. And it's only because I wrote this in a different way. Um, 0. All right, so that's good. I think that is a so we got this to get tested, and the reason we were able to test it is because we set the because the editor view. Oh wait, no, all it checks is the render ID. So I think that this extra information here is actually a distraction, right? Like you do not need that for it to pass. And this is only testing for it to pass. So having that extra information there, I guess, does kind of distract from the goal. And I don't think I need this ID. All this thing checks is, do we have a renderer ID? And makes the basic assumption that if there's a renderer ID, that it was rendered. That may not be a great assumption, but that is the assumption we're making at this point. I could imagine myself in some point in the future going, "Oh, I understand better." But all right. So what's next? The next one is going to be we're going to do the easier one next. See, these used to be an absolute nightmare for me to try to test, but see, once we break it out into this type of thing, then it's pretty easy. So basically, we just want to pass in a, okay, so it should resize the visualization. And it's trying to resize the, uh, I guess it should update the components viewer dimensions. We do need a mock component, but we need this mock component because it needs to be able to find the editor div's offset width. Okay, so all this accepts is the actual component itself and the um, native element, and it takes them separately. So that's interesting to me. And then we want our native element. And I do think it is helpful const native element is equal to, okay, what, oh, okay, is equal to mock component dot editor view dot native element. And we definitely want to bring this in as an HTML div element. Don't think it will be able to just do that on its own. And it's letting me do that. Okay, so then we want to resize visualization. That might not be a great name because it isn't actually, well, I guess that set timeout probably is actually resizing it. But it is definitely, I think this is supposed to happen on update. So this code isn't working at all. Um, so that's kind of a bummer. And then we want to send in the mock component and the native element. And then we want is rendered, is resized, to be is resized. So I guess when you're done doing unit tests, if you're trying to like really get the most out of unit tests, maybe you should be like, um, okay, so did resize did it not run? I feel like it didn't run. Okay, so now we got that. So that helps a lot. That put us up to 92%. Let's see, we only have this one section of code, and basically it's update, and it's supposed to get a two booleans and the app layout component. And then it needs to make sure it has the editor view, which that last one we do has that. And then um, and that's it. And then it'll call that other one. Um, so this is the last one for this file. So what do we expect it? Okay. And I do think that like one of my goals before today, before I started this video, was like I want to fully understand what I'm working on, how all these functions, what these functions do, and I don't want there to be any question about understanding what these functions do. Now, obviously, it's broken, but right now, I guess that's not. Like you can't take care of everything all at one time, so that is not at the priority at the moment. That is the biggest priority, without a doubt. Should update. I have to admit, anytime I name anything process from now on, I'm going to take a step back and go like, oh, is that really what I want? Because process does seem like you're just punting on instead of having you're like process item, you don't want to think, you're not thinking all the way through what this thing is doing. Um, okay, so basically we gave it a name, we gave this specification a name, and now here's the function we want it to run. And we want it to run and I will say that like when I first started um, updated, let's change this. Like I was like, okay, all I want is 100%. That's all I want because I didn't understand really the benefit of unit testing. Now I don't know if what do they say, the juice is worth the squeeze, but so we need our mock component, and I don't think we want this stuff. So hopefully that didn't break anything. So mock component, true and true. Well, update. Oh, wrong one. This is update visualization size. Now, will I remember all this stuff? No, I won't. But I want it next time I come in, I'll know if I did a good job or not, is if I can read these and everything makes sense pretty quickly. Not immediately, but so I expect ST visualization size updated to be true. It may not because, well, it should just because if we get in there at all, it should. It should set it to true. So like it does this stuff, but I don't think it actually ran the code. Like the test. It did stuff. Oof, we got some broken tests. Finalize initialization is not a function. So that was the one I just changed a second ago. So I do need that. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this and it's good to know, right? Like, okay, and there is something like that is not obvious that this is required, but now I know it's required and I have it there, so I know it. I'm talking to myself. I'm like trying to learn right now. Um, I know that finalized visualization has to be there, or this test fails. So resize visualization cannot execute without this function existing. Let's reload. I think we still should have one, and it's the same deal. Okay. So if we were to look in there, we probably would be pretty obvious what that something in that gets called as part of that is dependent on this after visualization complete existing. That is nice. So it seems to be running this time. And I think we have 100%. Yep, we have 100% coverage on this. We definitely have something broken because this should be resizing and figuring out a new. I believe that is part of this. Oh, so it's a shame you can't add from there. That would be nice. I mean, you can add, but you can't see it. Yeah, see now how it's like. See, we want when we change this for it to be able to update. Not. Oh, I put that in the perfect spot. All right, so what are we going to do tomorrow? Tomorrow. So what are we overall? We're at 97.87%, 95% and 95%. So we have 5 branches. So like you notice, like, I don't know, there's probably a healthy number, but like you probably should, I'm guessing that ideally about 10% of your code should be branches. But I don't know. I like literally just made that up. But it looks like our next one is this entities visualization. And let's click in here. Reset all visualizations. So this is definitely a new function. So it makes sense. And basically, I think all it needs is a visualization to go over that has a viz component ID of -1. So -1 is sometimes the component, a viz component ID for a visualization. And I remember we did that because of an edge case where like sometimes a visualization gets a new ID created for it. The old one recycles and the new one creates a new one and it gets the same one back again, which causes a very strange edge case error when you're drawing stuff out. So this is a classic one where I think we're going to need to pull this into its own function and call it directly. And then we probably actually need to pull both of these into a function and call it, and then pass in the stale visualization and get it to pass that way. as opposed to um, like having the branch in here. Um, let's see, what get first stale visualization. This is where we would have expected because this is where we made a lot of changes. Um, so it looks like we never pass in, like it never gets passed in with an actual visualization. So guessing, I'm guessing this is going to have to be turned into another like function and then have a binding and stuff like that. And that is it for that one. So that should take one session to do, I think. Let's see. How many do we have that are sub 100? Oh, and then we'll have one more, and that's in our animations. I'm guessing, yeah, it's just literally 4 lines of code aren't being called, 4 statements. I always find it interesting when statements and lines aren't identical. And then 1 branch. So I'm guessing all of my problems are inside that branch. Yeah, so basically the set position gets called and we need to pull this out to where we just pass in a native element. And then it takes the element that was passed in and sets it out. So that should be pretty simple. Maybe I'll be able to do both tomorrow and get back up to 100%, run our end-to-end tests. Hopefully we have an end-to-end test that tests for this resizing. I'm pretty sure we do. This was not broken before we started um, unit testing. So I think something in the unit test work must have broken this. Um, so we'll have to sort of circle back all the way to the beginning again, start a debug process of figuring out why this is broken, fix it, go back through the unit tests, do any updates to unit tests for 100% and understanding. I want clear understanding of whatever code I'm looking at. That's one of my new rules that I added to unit tests. So the unit tests are absolutely useless without that, in my personal opinion. Um, that is just a good time to just fixate on obsessing about individual lines of code is while you're in the unit test. And now that I say it out loud, it's so freaking obvious, but it wasn't obvious to me before. And then hopefully end-to-end tests are fixed at that point. And once I get that, I'm going to commit that. It's going to be a massive commit, 99 files now. Um, it's a massive commit. That is the last time I ever do that. I'm never ever going to do that again. And as long as I have control, I'm going to make sure that as I fix things, when I do a set of changes, I'm going to do a commit. When I'm like, okay, I've done the changes, I think, then I'm gonna do the unit test and I'm gonna do a commit. And it's just like, this is my unit tests commit. And then I'm gonna run end-to-end tests and I'm gonna do a commit. And if I have to go back to the beginning at any point, I'll do the commits as I finish the coding. And then once the unit tests and I'll know that I have a good, ready, viable set of code when I have completed the Cypress test. Cypress test commit is the last commit. I won't do the Cypress test commit until every other thing has been committed. And then if the Cypress test is broken and I decide to add a new Cypress test that ends up breaking stuff, then until that Cypress test is passed, that's how I'll know I have a good set of code. What I did is dumb. It was really, really dumb. Anyways, happy coding, everybody. I hope you guys have a wonderful Saturday. Bye. Happy coding.